Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. I wanted to do a quick update now that we have two tropical systems. We've got Tropical Depression 13 and Tropical Depression 14, but I'm going to wait to get really into the steering currents a real deeper until the hurricane hunters go out there. They're supposed to investigate both systems today. For sure, we're going to see an investigation into 14. We'll see if they actually end up doing that 13 mission, but I do want to update you on what's going on because we have two named systems and both will likely impact the United States. Here's our first system, which is closest. Here's our second system. But here's the thing. This one's moving so fast, and this one is forecast to slow down. They're likely both going to be in the same vicinity of the western and eastern Gulf of Mexico early next week. So even though they're separated now, by the time we get into next week, they're going to be very close together. Let me show you the first one. This is our newly formed Tropical Depression 14. Pretty well organized cluster of thunderstorms here now. The center looks to be somewhere in there, but you can see a big explosion of thunderstorms overnight, and based on satellite interpretation, able to classify it as a tropical depression. Here's Tropical Depression 13, which isn't as well organized. It's still battling some dry air and shear. And there's some indications that the center might be a little bit off on where we think it is right now. But again, the hurricane hunters are supposed to investigate both systems today. Let me show you real quickly the tracks. These are the 11 o'clock tracks. I'll move my head out of the way here. You can see Tropical Depression 13. This will become Laura, likely later today or tonight. It will be a real race to see which one becomes Laura first, because if 14 gets a name first, it would be Laura and this would be Marco. So they're battling it out for those names. But you can see the track forecast to be a hurricane as it approaches South Florida early Monday into Tuesday. Now, the thing to watch out for here is if it stays on the northern side of this track, the potential for further intensification is certainly there. There's some indication dry air could become an issue with this system. There's some dry air to the north, but if it can organize itself quickly and kind of insulate itself, this could become a more significant hurricane in the long range. So that's something to keep an eye on with 13. And we got to watch for any churn to the north early or into the Gulf. If it misses land altogether, this could become a significant storm and eventually recurve and maybe impact the Carolinas in the form of rain. But don't let your guard down just yet in the Carolinas, because this is still a possibility. Remember, the cone is where it could be, and the forecast cone is where the center is, not where the impacts are. So if the forecast track takes it up the east side of Florida, there's still a pretty significant threat for storm surge in the Carolina coast area. So just be aware of that. Don't let your guard down on that. Now, probably less of a threat to the Carolinas, but still a significant threat to the Gulf Coast is Tropical Depression 14. Whether this becomes Marco or Laura, again, is going to depend on how quickly each forms. Now, the one that worries me about this one is it's in what I like to refer to as the hot tub of the Atlantic. There's potential here that this could explode into a significant hurricane prior to hitting the Yucatan Peninsula. And then once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, I think there's a potential it could re-intensify again. So this water is so deep and warm in this part of the world that if you get the right environmental conditions, storms can rapidly intensify. So keep a close eye on this. You can see it's expected to make this churn, but as it churns, it's going to slow down and move up here. That's why on Tuesday into Monday, we could have Marco or Laura there and Marco or Laura over here as well. So two separate systems could be on either side of the Gulf of Mexico. Let's go back to the wide view, and you can see the steering currents here. I'm going to pause this. You see this big trough digging in over the Gulf of Mexico. That's what's going to drive 14. It's going to get pulled up here. What's driving 13 is this big ridge of high pressure, which is expected to build back to the west over time. So this is supposed to move with it, and that should keep it moving west. But if this should halt, or the west side of this gets weakened, or this trough lifts out quicker, that could play havoc with both systems. So that's why I'm going to wait till the hurricane hunters get out there. The reason the hurricane hunters are important, they'll get out there. Not only do they sample the storm, but they sample the atmosphere here, and hopefully they'll head out here and sample that system, and that'll give us some pretty good upper air data as well. So a couple things to keep an eye on as the hurricane hunters head out there today. Real quickly, the water vapor loop, just to show you these steering currents. You see that big trough over the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see off the east coast our big ridge of high pressure driving these systems. So they're pretty straightforward in the short term. The big question marks start arising in the long term on what these systems are going to end up doing. So I just want to do a quick update on where they are, where they're heading right now. I'll wait to get more in depth into what's going to happen with these long range. But again, the timing, remember, both of these could be in this vicinity on Monday into Tuesday. South Florida and the western Gulf of Mexico. Carolinas, we're not out of the woods yet for direct impacts, but both of these eventually are going to recurve up here. So we could end up seeing some significant rain middle to end of next week.